everyone. We are happy to welcome you all to the day 4 session of the Extensions 101 webinar series. In today's session, we will go through the features available in Zoho Desk for building extensions. We'll also demonstrate how to create and publish extensions for Zoho Desk with a sample extension. I am Vinod, and we also have Lavanya and Nandita with us during this session. We are all part of the Zoho Marketplace team, and we will be taking you through the webinar series. So, the topics that we will be covering in today's session are as follows. First, we will look at a few scenarios in which the extensions could be useful in Zoho Desk. Next, we will go through the features available in the Zoho Desk developer platform for creating extensions. Then, we will look at how to publish the extensions that are created using the above mentioned features. Finally, using an example use case, we will show you how to set up the development environment, create a connection, build an extension, and publish it. Let us get into each topic in more detail. We have seen in our previous sessions that the Zoho CRM has its own developer console for building extensions. However, for Zoho Desk, you can use any programming language of your choice to create an extension. Once you have created, all you have to do is just zip and upload the project files at the designated platform Sigma and get your extensions published. With that said, let us see some scenarios where the extensions can be helpful in Zoho Desk. Consider a scenario where a customer has reported an issue by submitting a ticket in Zoho Desk. One of the support agents picks up the ticket, investigates the issue, and eventually resolves it. Here, we can add an extension to send feedback surveys on closing the ticket. So, with the help of feedback from the customers, the administrator or the department head can choose to measure the service offered by the agents and get to know how satisfied the customers are. Adding such an extension could turn out to be a useful Zoho Desk add-on. Next, we will look at a different scenario. In recent times, almost every business has integrated online instant messaging services like WhatsApp, Messenger, or Line with their customer support applications in order to improve the customer's engagement activities. Such an integration between any of those messaging services and Zoho Desk would allow multiple agents of a portal to use the same number and handle queries of different customers. They may also respond to the chats directly, create a ticket in Zoho Desk if an issue is reported, communicate the status of those tickets as messages, and even attach media files if necessary. With this integration, the customers can have all the information handy, making it easier for them to stay updated and have easy access to all the information at one place. So, with these scenarios, you could have got some idea on how the extensions could be beneficial in Zoho Desk. Now, it's time for us to get started with the stuff related to building extensions for Zoho Desk. Before we could actually start with building an extension for Zoho Desk, let's first check out how these extensions are made available to users within the Zoho Desk. So, in order to show you those locations, I am getting into the Zoho Desk. When you open a ticket and get into the ticket details page, you can find this marketplace icon on the top of the page. By clicking on this icon, you will be provided with a widget space from where you will be able to access the extensions functionalities. These widgets are created and rendered through the Zoho Desk extensions. As you can see in this widget space, the Zoho WorkDrive extension that I have already installed is configured to load in the right panel. Similarly, the ChatGPT for Zoho Desk extension has been rendered in the left panel. The Kanban taskboard extension has been rendered in the top band, and the Google Contacts extension has been made to render in the bottom band. In this way, based on the business scenario you are handling, you can identify the right location and render your widget over there. You can configure your extensions widget to load in different locations of Zoho Desk. You can even render a single extension in multiple locations depending on your requirements. So, having seen the accessibility of extensions in Zoho Desk, let's move on to the features that are available in the Zoho Desk platform for building extensions. Let me quickly introduce you to the main features offered by the Zoho Desk for developing extensions. The first in our list is client APIs. Handling data related to the Zoho Desk tickets and its modules is an essential task in extensions. The Zoho Desk client SDKs includes several methods for handling these data, and they serve as a bridge between the Zoho Desk and other apps, allowing both of them to access the required data. Next, we have functions. When you are building complex solutions, you will have to perform some computations or perform a defined task. In such scenarios, functions would be relatively helpful. You can create functions using the Deluge script builder provided in Sigma. Suppose you need to trigger the functions based on an event happening in Zoho Desk, then you can associate that trigger to a function in Sigma as well. Let me get into Sigma and show you the options available for adding functions. So when you get into Sigma, you can find the functions option listed in the left panel. Once you click on it, you can see the list of functions that you have already created, if any. To create a new function, click on the add function button and you will be able to create the function. So let me return to the presentation and continue with the list of features. The next in our list is event callbacks. There are few extension events that can be captured and a counter action can be triggered upon the occurrence of such events. For example, consider extension installation or uninstallation, authorizing or revoking authorization for third-party applications. These are a few events that require some actions to be performed on their occurrence, and the Zoho Desk platform supports callbacks for the same. Finally, we have channel integration. Consider that you have a Facebook channel for your store. Let's say if a user comments in your channel, you want a ticket to be created for the same in Zoho Desk. This can be accomplished with channel integration, which allows you to sync data such as tickets, threads, and contacts between Zoho Desk and the external services. The agents can respond to the customer query on external platforms directly from within the Zoho Desk using this channel integration. By now, we hope all of you would be familiar that Sigma is an extension development platform which is exclusively meant for building extensions for various Zoho products and publishing them on the Zoho marketplace. If you have a fundamental understanding of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, Building extensions in Sigma will be a breeze for you. So let's go ahead and get into Sigma and explore the features available within the platform. If you are a first time user, you will be prompted to create a new workspace when you open Sigma. You can enter a workspace name to proceed. Here, I have already created a workspace and built a few extensions. I can view them all under the All Extensions tab. You can also check out the published extensions under the Published tab. Now, let's go ahead and explore the other options that are available in the Sigma platform. Using the Functions option, as we have mentioned earlier, you can create functions to your extension. Next, we have the Execution section, which lists the logs of your functions executed based on the triggers. The logs will comprise the trigger name and its version, to which function the trigger is associated, start time and duration of the execution, and its status. Following that is the connection section. Whenever a connection between Zoho Desk and other Zoho products or any other third-party apps is required, Sigma provides you with this option to establish a connection between them. We can try creating a connection in this section during our use case demo. Finally, we have the settings option that helps you manage developers in your Sigma workspace. Here, you can add or remove developers from your workspace. I hope every one of you can follow these concepts so far. Now, let's get into the steps involved in creating a desk extension project wherein the actual development and testing will be involved. Hope you all remember the development environment that was set up during our earlier session for creating widgets. The setup process involved installing the Node.js, Node Package Manager, that is NPM, and the Zoho Extension Toolkit command line interface, which we call as ZCLI. The same development environment will be used for developing our widgets for Zoho Desk as well. In fact, not just the Zoho Desk, you can use the same environment for creating widgets for other Zoho products, be it the Zoho Creator, Zoho Mail, or Zoho projects. You can always check out the help documentations of the respective Zoho products for details about the minimum version of Node.js and ZCLI tool required for building widgets for that particular product. Now, with the development environment already set, we are ready to develop a project in Node.js for our Zoho Desk extension. You can go ahead and use the Z commands listed here, which are used for creating, validating, testing, and packaging your project. So before we get started, let's go through the actual steps involved in creating an extension for Zoho Desk. In most cases, only the following flow will be involved. First, you should create a project in Node.js. Next, you need to create a connection in Sigma between the applications of your requirement and then updating the plugin manifest.json file accordingly. Then, you should implement your business logic for your use cases by adding the code of your extension to the widget.html file. After implementation, you can go ahead with testing the project in development mode, validating and packaging the project files. As a final step, you should create a new extension in Sigma by uploading the zipped file and then publishing the extension. Finally, you can install the extension in Zoho Desk either using the installation URL generated after publishing the extension or from the Zoho Marketplace. So, to help you understand better, we have come up with a use case using which we would demonstrate the steps involved in creating an extension for Zoho Desk. So here is our example use case. This particular extension integrates Zoho Desk with Zoho projects. Whenever a desk agent receives a ticket with an issue being reported, he may classify that ticket as problem depending on the nature of the issue reported in that ticket. Our idea here is to associate the details of that particular ticket to Zoho projects by creating a new task in it. So we are capturing that event change in the ticket, that is ticket being classified as problem, and then trigger a task creation for that particular ticket in Zoho projects. With the task being created, the development team will find it easy to track the issue and allocate resources to resolve the issue. So, to implement this use case, we have used a couple of client APIs such as Event API, Request API, Data API, and Extensions API. We have also configured config params in the plugin manifest file to get the project ID into which the task needs to be created. As the first step of this implementation, we have to create a project folder. So let me go ahead to create an extension project in the terminal. As I have already configured the development environment by installing the Node.js and ZCLI tool, I am giving the zinit command to create a new project for our extension. Now, the list of Zoho services is being listed. As I mentioned earlier, you can choose any of the Zoho products. Here, I am choosing Zoho Desk. You will be prompted for a project name. I am providing a new name for the project. We can select yes or no for module support based on your preference. The module support is required when you are using UI interfaces like React.js. As we don't require the module support for our use case, I am choosing no here. Now, a project template directory with all the necessary files, folders, and dependency node packages will be created in this specific location. Let's go ahead and explore the project folder we have just created. As I move into the designated folder, and as you can see here, a folder with the project name that we have entered now has been created. As you can see here, this is the default structure of an extension project. All the project resources of your extension requirements are need to be added in the folder app. The widget.html file is used to add your code for the widget. The plugin manifest.json file helps in configuring the extension. To whitelist the domain URLs used in your extension, you can add those URLs within this whitelisted domains parameter. As I have already mentioned, the widgets can be made to access from different locations of Zoho Desk. You can configure those location details in widgets where the extension will be rendered and can be accessed. Zoho authorization and connectors will be required when you use connections. For internal services, we will be adding the JSON code snippet of the connections within the Zoho authorization. And for third-party services, we will be adding the same within the connectors. Suppose during the extension installation process, if you want to get some details from the user, you can facilitate the same using this config section. We will be adding config params as part of a use case demo, wherein we will configure to get the portal ID of Zoho projects from users installing the extension. You may require testing your extensions before publishing them, and the developer mode in Zoho Desk enables the environment for testing the extensions. To test the widget that I have just created, let me return to the terminal. Here, I am following the steps as mentioned over here. I am getting into the folder using the command cd folder name. And then giving the command zrun to start the extension server. As you can see, the server is running successfully. Now we can enable the developer mode in Zoho Desk. And for that, I am getting into my Zoho Desk account once again. Once I click on the setup icon, the setup page will appear. Here, under the developer space, I am clicking on build extensions, and in the following page, I am clicking enable developer mode. Sometimes you may get this error stating that unable to load your extensions. This is a quite common error, and in such instances, just go to the terminal and copy this URL. Now open the URL in the browser, then click proceed to the URL. As you can see, the files within the app folder of our project are loaded over here. Now in Zoho Desk, if I get into a ticket, I could see that the sample widget is getting loaded in the default location, that is the right panel. So this is how you can actually test your extensions before we publish them. Now that I have created a project and tested it, I am moving to the next step where I'll create a connection in Sigma that will be required for a use case extension. So let me go back to the Sigma for connection creation. As we have already seen, I am selecting the connections option for creating the connections. Here you can see the default and custom services. Default services are a set of pre-configured services provided by Sigma that are most frequently used by its customers. Here, you can choose a service from the available list, provide your credentials, and establish a connection. If you don't have your desired service listed in the default services, you can create a custom connection under custom services and get connect with that service. As part of our demo, we need to create a connection between Zoho Desk and Zoho projects. So I am proceeding with the default services. So to create a connection, I am clicking on the create connection button. For internal Zoho services, we need to pick Zoho OAuth from the list. I am providing a connection name and you can see the connection link name is automatically populated. I am toggling yes to use credentials of login user as I want every user to authorize with their credentials while installing the extension. Then I am selecting the required scopes for the extension. Once I select the scopes that I require, I am clicking on create and connect. Here I am being asked to authorize so that Zoho OAuth connection can access my account to create the connection. Once I click on connect, I am being asked if the desk and projects can access my account. Once I click on accept, you can see that the connection has been successfully created. Now we need to copy this JSON code snippet and paste the same under the Zoho authorization parameter in the plugin manifest file of the project that we have created. With this step, we have completed creating the required connections for our use case demo. Let's move to the next step where we implement our use case of the demo we have chosen today. So as I mentioned earlier, using the client APIs, I have already created the code for the use case taken. Let me brief you how I have tried to achieve our use case with the code. The widget.html is the default file that will be created during the project creation. It will include extensions.onload method by default. The client SDKs of Zoho Desk are accessible only within this method. This method will be initialized on window.onload function. I have also included all my code in the widget.html file. Let's quickly go through the code. So, as per our use case, we need to create a task with the details of the ticket as soon as a ticket is classified as problem. So, to get the details of the ticket, the JS SDK data API will be useful. The data APIs are used to communicate with the various objects available within your Zoho Desk portal. Here is the code we have used to fetch all the required ticket details, which will then be used for creating a task in Zoho projects. The Zoho Desk.get along with the property name will fetch the ticket related details. We have got some basic information from the ticket like ticket ID, ticket subject, and ticket description. Next, we will have to listen the event change happening in the ticket fields. That is when the agent changes the classification of the ticket. This can be done using the JS SDK Events API. The Events API helps you incorporate custom functionalities in your extension when certain events occur in your Zoho Desk portal. Here, the ticket classification change event is captured. Upon event change, we check if the classification is problem, and when satisfies the condition, we call the task creation API of Zoho projects. To invoke the task creation API of Zoho projects from within the Zoho Desk, the JS SDK request API can be used as it allows to invoke any third-party applications from within the desk extension. As per our example, you can see that we are passing the ticket details to the task creation API along with the required portal and projects. By configuring the config params as given here, we make it mandatory for the user to provide their project ID in the configuration section while installing the extension. This project ID and the associated portal ID will be used for creating tasks in Zoho projects. So this is how we have implemented our example use case. Now let's quickly go through the entire project that I have already created. Here, as you can see, we are using the extensions API to get the project ID, which will be configured by the user while installing the extension. Then using the data APIs, we are getting the ticket details such as ticket ID, ticket subject, and ticket description. Then we are using the request API for getting the portal ID of the projects into which the task needs to be created. Once we have the portal ID, ticket details, and the project ID, and whenever the event change occurs, we are using the post method of request API to create a task within the Zoho projects. To implement this use case, I have configured my plugin manifest file as well, wherein I have provided the projects URL within the whitelisted domains. Also, I have configured my widget to load in the right panel of the Zoho Desk. Then, as I mentioned earlier, I have created a connection between Zoho Desk and Zoho projects, and I have placed that particular connection within the Zoho authorization parameter. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, I have used the config parameters to get the project ID of the user while installing the extension. So now that we have added all the necessary resources to the plugin manifest.json and the widget.html files for our use case, let's proceed with packaging and validating and packaging the extension. So let's return to the terminal again. Let me stop the server running. So here, after making sure that we are in the right directory, I am using the z validate command to validate the files in our project folder. As you can see, the validation has been successful. So I am going ahead and packing the files using the command zpack. Sorry for that. We could see here that the files are packed and the zip is created and added to the disk folder. Let's get into the disk folder of our project and check if the zip file is available. So as you can see here, the disk folder has been created and the zip file has been successfully added within that folder. With this particular zip file, we are ready to create the disk extension in Sigma. So let's go to Sigma, create a new extension for Zoho Desk, and then publish the extension. Once we get into Sigma, I'm I am clicking on the new extension button. I am providing a name and a description for the extension. Then I am choosing the Zoho Desk service and I am uploading the zip zip file which we have just created. After I agree to the terms and conditions, I am clicking create. As you can see here, the extension has been successfully created. You will be shown with the extension details along with the publish button. When I click the publish button, I can see the extension to be private or public. While the public extensions are published in Zoho Marketplace after successful validation by the Marketplace approval team, the private extensions can be installed using the installation URL generator. If you enable multi-DC support, the extensions can be installed from users across all the 6 DCs supported. Else, the extension will be limited to users of DC from where the extension is published. Once I click publish, you can see that the extension pub- has been published successfully and the installation URL is generated. Let's go ahead and install the extension using the installation URL generated. Just paste the URL in your browser and the extension will be ready to be installed. I am selecting the department and profiles to whom the extension will be installed. After I agree to the terms and conditions, I click install. As prompted, I am authorizing the extension by accepting the consent that both desk and projects can access my data. Once authorized, as you can see here, we need to provide the project ID in the configuration page. You can get it from the project's URL. Now that the extension has been successfully installed and configured, let's go ahead and open a ticket now. The developer mode should be disabled for the published extensions to work. Let's go ahead and open a ticket. Now, I am changing the classification of this particular ticket as problem. Let's get into the projects and check if the task has been created. As you can see, the has not been created now. Once you refresh the page, you can see over here that a new task has been created with the ticket subject as its name. Now, this particular task could be taken up by the development team, analyze the issue, and provide workaround for the issue reported. Then, the agents can communicate the same to the customer. So, this is just a sample feature, but you can add more such resources in the same way and enhance the desk functionalities to a greater extent.